Ready, Bear? Are you going to be in the video? Hello.
Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast.
Woo.
This is a podcast where 4 psychotherapists, 3 of us Canadian, 1 of us American, serve you cutting edge mental health knowledge. I'm Dr. Ryan Howes, a clinical psychologist from Pasadena, California.
And I'm Dr. Brooke Lewis, a registered clinical counselor from the greater Vancouver area, and I do not have a fancy hat.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, also a clinical counselor from Port Moody.
I'm Chris Boyd, psychotherapist from Coquitlam.
Hooray.
Well done.
And this is Bear.
This is Bear.
For those listening, Bear is
Bear-
a little dog.
There's a white dog that's sitting next to Chris.
So I said hello, very welcoming, and Bear thought somebody was coming to the house.
Oh,
And now she's giving up and is going to take a nap.
There we go. Welcome, everybody. I'm still pleased, fortunate to be a resident, temporary resident of Canada until tomorrow, at least. And so thrilled to be able to do a second podcast here
Indeed.
in person.
Yep. Ryan's been here for a few nights.
I have, and we've had good experiences. A lot of walking, a lot of hanging out with people, eating good food, seeing beautiful sights,
singing
and
karaoke.
singing karaoke. Did a little karaoke singing last night, which was a lot of fun. The karaoke scene is, I guess, untapped. It's maybe bigger than we might think up here, but
Sure.
I think there's a lot more to explore.
Yep.
But I was also given a few different challenges
Yes.
when I came here.
So we were going to create like a bingo, like a Canadian bingo for Ryan, or for everyone. And then we would just make it so Ryan wins because that's what Canadians do. And then he would win a prize of Canadian snacks that they don't have in the States, but didn't get our act together. So we just kind of spitballed a little list, nothing formal. So what were some of the things that we're going to get you to do, Ryan? The Canadian checklist.
A big one was to say sorry, not sorry, but sorry to 10 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To at least 10 people. And a big part of the apologizing here, as I've learned, I'm just trying to soak in the culture, is it's okay and in fact encouraged to apologize for things that are actually not your fault. So if someone bumps into you, then saying, oh, sorry, is actually quite all right. It's the thing to
That's
do. Right?
appropriate.
Yeah.
You don't really think about it. You just, I feel like we
Oh,
feel like
sorry.
it's up to, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you stepped on my, sorry. You took my place in line. Sorry. You know,
It's true.
But there
So,
would be
yeah.
no you statement. You just say sorry.
no, you stepped in, you
No.
bumped into me, buddy. You know, that's a very American thing to do. Like, back off. You know,
No.
we're not gonna do that.
So we're down at this concert that we mentioned in the last podcast in this busy beer garden. So Ryan was trying it out, right? So I think you were like 2 for 7 for proper use of sorry.
I tried. I'm working on it.
So someone's like, hey, how are you? He's like, sorry. I'm like, no, that's not quite it. That's not it. But the first time you nailed it, someone bumped into you, bumped your arm.
Yes.
And
I had
you
my
turned
arm up on
around
the chair next to me, and someone was walking by and bumped my arm,
and you said sorry.
and I said,
And
sorry.
they said sorry. And then, yeah,
It
you
was
got
a
your
true
first.
exchange. Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
So
It was great. Canadian for a day. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
The second is an interesting one that seems to be kind of popular up here, which is called the Canadian Standoff.
Or that's the name that we gave it. I don't know what it's actually called.
Okay.
And this is when you're in line for something, or you're about to get in line, or like go through a door and somebody's arriving at the same time. So not in a car, it's you and another person in person. And then it's the gesture of trying to get the other person to go first. So you say, oh, please, you go. And then they say, no, you go. And you say, no, you go. I mean, please go. And then they go, you go. And it goes back and forth until somebody just shamefully puts their head down and says, oh, thank you. And carries on.
They shamefully
Shamefully accept.
say thank you. Thank you.
Well,
I'll go.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Whether it's shame or you're just like, oh, like, okay, well,
Oh,
thank you so much. Like,
But your head drops and you put your hand up to say thank you, and you say thank you. So then I was telling Ryan on the list that it would be great if he had the experience of making sure the other person went first, and the experience of him going first. But then we were debating, so if it were like a win-lose a Canadian standoff, what one is actually the winner? And Joanna, what
I
did you think?
I think well, again, never really ever considered this
No.
a thing. So if someone said what's a Canadian standoff, I wouldn't know. So, but this is, I would think you're winning if you
The
kind of
other
held your
person.
ground and the other person went.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, Ryan, if I had asked you before we explain that, what would you consider winning?
I mean, my American programming says if you get to go first, you won. You know, oh, I'm sorry, you go first. Oh, you go first. Okay, boom, I'm in there. You know,
So Ryan accomplished that very quickly. That sense of winning.
I understood that one. The other
17
one,
times, yeah. Like Ryan, you have to do the other part.
you have to let the other person go first. Okay, kind of trying to drill this in. This
Yeah.
is good.
Mhm.
These are all little quirky things that I think are very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I ate ketchup potato chips,
Woo!
ketchup flavored potato chips,
Ketchupy.
which they're very ketchupy, and I guess that's a Canadian delicacy.
Might sound gross, but they're quite delicious.
They're very good. They're very good. If Americans listening, if you want to know what they taste like, take a potato chip and dip it in ketchup, and that's it.
But
That's really what it
it
is.
wouldn't be, because then it
No.
would be soggy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have a crunchy chip.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's
All
a little
right.
very tangy, isn't it?
Yeah. Almost like an all dressy,
But they don't
less
have all dress.
Oh. You haven't had all dress chips?
What's all,
All
dress?
dressed.
Oh,
it's like a
that's-
mix of everything.
That's a staple up here.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, we'll have to get that today.
It's like an everything bagel, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's
with
just
all the
all dressed.
seasonings.
Yeah.
all the seasonings. So you got ranch and you've got
I don't
like
know what's
barbecue and
involved.
like
Yeah.
Ketchup,
I think
salt,
it's
and
just-
vinegar.
So it's
They're good.
and all that equates to flavor.
Well,
So it's
we'll
called
get-
all dressed.
We'll get you some.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, how did we miss this?
I know.
And you had a coffee crisp cake. So you've never had a coffee crisp candy
Chocolate bar.
chocolate bar.
I've not.
So now he knows the flavor without having the chocolate bar.
Coffee crisp, it's like a crunchy, kind of like an Oreo sort of a consistency that's like, is that
I
right?
say it's
Like a
wafery
wafer.
like a Kit Kat,
Okay,
but
Kit Kat.
bigger and just more coffee flavor.
Okay,
Yeah. And he had a Caesar.
And you had a Caesar.
I did have a Caesar, not a Caesar salad with romaine lettuce and croutons and anchovy dressing. No,
could
But
have had that
You did
because-
have that last night.
You
I did
had-
have that too. I did have a Caesar salad, but
Yeah.
Caesar up here is actually like our Bloody Mary in the United States, but instead of straight up tomato sauce, it is
Clamato.
Clamato. Yes, Clamato.
Which is basically tomato juice with clam in it.
Tomato juice with clam in
Sounds
it.
really gross.
Yeah,
But it works.
because someone came to Canada and was like, "I'd like a Bloody Mary, but there's something that's missing." And I think that's the clam. I
Clam
think
juice.
because Bloody Mary needs a little more clam in it. So
And pickled vegetables, right? So do
Oh,
Bloody
yeah.
Marys typically have like pickled beans or pickled
Or
asparagus or
olives or bacon.
olives?
yeah,
or-
sometimes those will be
Oh,
in there,
okay.
but yeah, I know you make a much bigger show of that because sometimes you'll have a whole like
There are some
appetizer
restaurants
plate
that have like a burger and like everything on this
on the
stick.
top
Yeah.
of the Caesar. So it's cultural differences are real.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're fun.
So we've picked another book
Yes,
after much deliberation.
we should talk about that. Right.
I don't even know.
I don't know the author's name. It's called Good Morning Monsters by
Oh,
Good Morning Monsters.
Good
Girl,
Morning Monster
singular.
by Catherine Gildener. And it is a story. It's a book written by a therapist who's has many years of experience in the field. She's a Canadian therapist from Toronto, actually, and she's telling stories about 5 very impactful clients that she's had in her life, in her career, and they're, of course, kept confidential. They're de-identified, but they're 5 very impactful stories that she's telling about what she calls heroes, therapeutic heroes. people who've been through tremendous amount and were somehow able to overcome because of their own resilience and through some of the help of the therapy. And it's very inspiring stuff. I just finished it myself and convinced these guys to read it, and I think you're gonna like it. It's really, really interesting. If you like storytelling, if you like inspiration, this is a good way to go.
Great.
Sounds good.
Look forward to it.
Yes. Good Morning Monster. Pick it up at your bookstore today. Okay, so with that having been said, we get to have a regular old podcast here
With an ambush.
with an ambush. Yes. So who's ambushing today?
It would be me.
So the
Joanna.
ambush, for people who this is their first podcast,
Yes.
is one of us knows the topic and 3 of us don't. Today, that is Joanna knows the topic, and she is going to send it over to Ryan.
Oftentimes they would have to send it across the border all the way down to California, but I'm across the room right now.
So still sending via text message. Save the paper, I guess. And Ryan's going to read it out, and we're going to have a discussion.
All right, here comes Ryan.
Sleep
Okay.
hygiene part 4.
Okay,
Toxic masculinity.
here we go. You ready, you guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Small talk. What is it? Why do we do it? Can or should we get better at it? Right? Is this something to improve? How can we change a conversation from small talk to something more meaningful? That's it.
Well, we were just small talking about that. Not really. We weren't talking about that, but we were just small talking. We were
Yeah.
bantering. That was small talk, right?
I'll tell you, this is a topic. Joe, tell me why you like this topic.
When this thought came to me,
How did you come up with this
about
topic?
this,
Yeah.
it just
Where
was,
does this come from?
it just came to me earlier today. And what jumped out amongst all the other topics that were just out there was, I tend to think of small talk as a bit of a struggle, and I have a bit of a, when I think of small talk, I don't necessarily always think highly of it. And in thinking about the questions that Ryan just read out about it, and thinking a bit more about it, I think I'm just curious what everyone else thinks about it, and if there's a way for it to be positive, or if it is positive, and if it could be useful, and when it is actually helpful to us. So I just, when I think of having a small talk with people, I'm like, but I don't know why that is, or why that's energy sucking for me. But maybe it depends on who I'm talking to, what the context is, etc. But I just thought it was a conversation worth having.
I was curious about that right before you said it. Like, does it matter if you were to think about like maybe a small gathering? So we had a gathering this weekend of people that Joanna know very well, and there's enough people that I don't know if you were able to get into deep conversations, maybe a few, but there was probably a lot of
It's all small
talk,
talk.
and it probably felt fine.
Yeah.
Or at other gatherings, larger gatherings, or before case consults, versus I don't know if it's a situation where there's more people that you don't know as well.
And well, I think it's important to maybe define what small talk even is, what we think small talk is. Is small talk the start of a conversation? Is it the initiation of a conversation with someone? Because everything just doesn't go into what was not small talk, deep conversation. So I don't know. I think we need to define some things here as well. But what are your thoughts there, Ryan? What interests you?
I think of this, I speak about this with clients often because, and it's an interesting phenomenon, because sometimes clients will get into therapy and they start talking about the things we talk about in therapy, which are personal and intimate and significant. And they really kind of like that, or some of them really kind of take to that. And they're like, oh, wow, I really enjoy speaking on this very real, authentic kind of level. And then sometimes they'll go into the rest of the world and be at a party and someone's like, hey, tell me about the weather, or what do you think about this little thing on TikTok? And they're like, ugh, I can't even do it. Because it's like, I'm so, it feels like worthless at times to them. Like, what's the use in just talking about hollow, superficial stuff when there's so much more meaningful stuff to talk about? And so there's some people who are like, I can't do small talk because it just annoys me. Some people find it very anxiety provoking to think of things to talk about, you know, like you're kind of on stage, you got to perform and like
Keep the conversation going.
keep the conversation going, keep it moving along. And yeah, I think it's a and then again, there are a lot of people who are also really good at it. And that's like the way that they connect. That's the way that they form new relationships. It's like, hey, superficial topics, you know, at the beginning, and then eventually they might deepen things a little bit, and they feel more comfortable with small talk.
Yeah.
But I just think it's an interesting topic. Good one, Joe.
I think it's an important thing that people do. Like, I think it's an important skill to have, right? Because you don't always have time for a deep conversation.
True.
Like you might just be having a short visit, or it might not be the right context to have that deep conversation, depending on who else is in the room. Or small talk, I feel like, is typically easier topics to talk about, just in general. So, and people can often have an opinion or a thought, or can contribute to that topic. So it doesn't exclude anyone in the room as well. So it's something that we all share, right? So talking about the weather, everyone can comment on it.
Sure.
Right. But I think it's also a way that people, it's like a safety thing. Like you can test the waters with someone and their sense of humor and how they respond. And if it's going well, then you maybe ask a little bit of a more personal or a deeper question, and then that relationship can build. But I see small talk as a way to test the waters with someone.
Like dip into these topics, because like you could dip into more serious topics, but it might just not be a long time to do it, or the setting for it.
Along the same lines, I think small talk serves a purpose. It's important. It creates connection. And when it comes to communication and connection, it's not just about the topics per se, the depth of those topics. Is, you know, face to face, you're listening, and you're, to Brooke's point, sensing how the person's like. You're learning about their preferences, right? So you can have small talk and still feel very connected to someone in a very authentic way, which I think is really great. And also, you can't just delve into a deep conversation when you're in the elevator or before a meeting begins or whatever that might be, because that can be uncomfortable as well. Someone delves into something deeper, like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have the time to really get into this. That can be uncomfortable too. So I think it serves a purpose. I think the ultimate goal, though, is to potentially deepen those conversations, perhaps. So it could be a little problematic if maybe all you do is have small talk with family members or friends. You're not getting beyond that. Maybe it works for that person. I don't know.
I was just laughing because I'm thinking about the fact that, like, in LA, it's even become kind of a cliche. I think it was even like spoofed on Saturday Night Live at one point, but people talking about traffic is something that's very small talk, and everyone kind of wants to do it, but it's also kind of annoying. Like, oh, I had to go to the west side. You know, I'm in Pasadena. I had to go to the west side, so I took the 110, and then I got off on the 5, and then I went over the 10, and then I had to take Cahuenga or whatever. These, you know, people love to talk about their travel routes and like how they get places.
Oh,
it's like the weather here.
That's the weather here. Yeah,
it's always changing.
Which is, and people understand it, and there's kind of like a nodding agreement, like, oh yeah, I understand how bad the traffic is, but it's not intimate. It's not really all that personal. And it's kind of tedious as well, you know.
However, that person shared part of their day with you.
They did share part of their day.
And it got the conversation going. It's an icebreaker.
It's also, it's sharing a commonality. So I think what's the purpose and function of small talk is kind of establishing a common ground. Like, hey, we both get traffic. We both get weather. We both get, did you see Top Gun or whatever that might be, some sort of a common ground that we can kind of start from.
A bit of an icebreaker, right?
Yeah.
Because then that conversation goes, oh yeah, I took that route the other day and there was whatever restaurant. Have you been there before? And then, oh, now we have another shared thing and whatever it might be, right? Like I think it can always go somewhere. So it just starts the domino.
Yeah. So I think it could it's important for first impressions. it could be important for lasting impressions, because these little moments could be quite, yeah, depending, you know, small but meaningful in their own ways, or could make a mark, right? People networking, it's probably going to help people who need to network for a living and meet people and chat in those little one-to-one conversations, right?
So it
So
can lower some stress too.
Yeah.
Like if you want to connect with someone and you want to get that conversation going, once you get rolling a bit, that hopefully anxiety and stress goes down a little bit.
you have to be a bit creative, probably helps you maybe think more on the spot.
Yeah. So I can see how people maybe don't like small talk because it's again can come across as kind of hollow, or you don't know what to say next, and that can become uncomfortable. But I do have some clients. I do have people I know, friends that really don't like small talk. They want to avoid it at all costs, right?
Why? What's painful about small talk, do you think?
They think it's
Painful or-
not authentic. They think it's a waste of time. They think they want to talk about real things with real people and not talk about surface level fakey things.
But those, you're not going to have that conversation without safety, and safety is not going to come without getting to know that person. So
Yeah,
it's
no, I
a
agree.
really great opportunity. I understand though, lots of people
Not
mention
necessarily.
this, like that small talk is really difficult. But it's kind of necessary.
Yeah, I think it, like for me, and I kind of started at the beginning saying that I have a bit of some more difficult thoughts with it. But when I think about that, it's like I can have small talk with people close to me, and because not every conversation is going to be a deep one. But I think about if I had to go to a party, there might not be people I've seen in a long time. And I think what plays a role is if I'm tired, if I don't have a lot of energy, then I think sometimes the awkwardness comes from me is we're kind of just talking because we have to talk. Like we kind of bumped into each other and we're just trying to find something to talk about. Like
Oh, I see.
it's like, oh, now we gotta, it's like two people come and all three of us are talking, one person leaves, now it's just you and the other person. You're like, so like, how was that trip you took?
Yeah.
Saw it on
So you kinda have to
Instagram.
wait,
And but you're not like, other than that party once a year, we don't have any relationship outside of it. Like it's just so those moments I'm like, but then sometimes they're really enjoyable and it's great. So I think what increased that for me was after COVID, or well, I know we're still in this COVID endemic area of it, but a lot of people you haven't seen in a long time. And when you're just like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to
Like how were things? So we're just down, we ran into a bunch of people
Yeah.
we knew
yeah.
had this event in Port Moody. And hey, what's new with you? Well, you know, what do you talk about? You say, well, the pandemic or work and re-engaging, but it's pretty surface level stuff.
That's not to be, we don't need to, we shouldn't underestimate that, because that's a big deal, right? You've got a year or 2 years worth of material. You've had a lot of highs and lows and tragics and heartaches and all that stuff.
How do you contain it?
When someone says to you, hey, how you been? You know, that you've got, okay, I've got a sentence and a half or
An
whatever.
elevator speech.
An elevator speech. And that's a hard thing. That's hard work in that moment.
Yeah.
To be like, well, and you're also assessing like, how much do I want to disclose to this person?
Yes.
You know, how close are we? How safe are you? Is this going to really improve our relationship or not? Is it important for me to invest that much? You know, so you could do something very superficial. Oh, it's been great. It's been ups and downs. How are you? You know, turn it back around to the other person.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, gosh, it's really been hard and I've really struggled. And let me tell you about the difficult times I've had over the last couple of years. You could go there. But
So I guess would that be still small talk?
Well, you'd be pulling it down into a deeper
talk.
A deeper thing. But that's, I guess the work of that is all of that assessment that you're doing in that moment. Like, okay, what do I want to share? How important is this relationship? Do I really want to go there?
Yeah, that's true.
It's tough.
And I find another piece of small talk, or a part that I have a big problem with, or is very difficult for me, is when do you end it? So just thinking about these, if you're at a party and it's the person you haven't seen in a year, you still like this person, you care about this person, but the conversation, like you're kind of pulling at straws to keep it going, nothing's really, and then you don't want to seem rude or disrespectful, so you can't just be like, well, bye.
It's
Like,
usually, gotta get another drink,
gotta
gotta
get
go to the
another
bathroom.
drink.
Oh, there's that. I don't know. Yeah. Well, why
Excuse
do you have
me,
to
I'm
be so
just-
uncomfortable?
Yeah, it's super, you feel like you're abandoning the person, right?
I can't
And
be
you're
like,
like, now who are they gonna talk to?
Or it's good to see you.
Yeah.
So maybe see you later.
Yeah.
Move on.
Or I'm gonna take a lap. You ever heard that one?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good one.
like that's, I was just at a, my professional organization, like the local psychology group in my town had their first meeting in a couple of years, they have like an annual celebration thing. We did that. And I found myself in that very situation, like, okay, I'm talking with you, but I'm not gonna spend the next 3 hours talking just to you. There is that moment of how do I cut this off and move on? Kind of wait for like a natural ending to this topic and then say, hey, have a great time. I'm gonna go, see some other folks.
Great to see you.
Great to see you. I'm gonna take a lap,
Yeah.
But that's, again, it's work. It is a little bit of work.
Yeah, and
Especially a muscle I haven't flexed in a long time.
if in that situation, if there is like, I don't know, if this is a work thing and there's 100 people or 200 people,
Yeah.
that's easy to do. But if this is a small house party, you're gathering of 20 or 30 people, they're like, that's a little bit more awkward, right?
Sure.
Because you're still like on the same, like in the same room
Okay.
together.
Yeah.
Well, we're highlighting how this is challenging. This is,
And some people might just really like that light-hearted conversation or small talk. Like, they don't have a problem with it. They
Yeah.
can chat people's ears off all the time. But where does it switch into not small talk?
do you think there's an introvert extrovert thing here?
Yeah, could play a role, people's comfort level of if they want to even be socializing at all. And then,
Sure.
that might be tiring in itself, whether it's going to be deep conversation or not.
Yeah.
So
Typically introverts want deeper conversation,
yeah, fewer
Right?
conversations.
Yeah.
Deeper,
fewer, deeper. Extroverts are okay having that more superficial.
yeah.
That's the dishwasher, if you guys can hear that.
Your sings a song to you? It's a very Canadian thing.
It's like my dryer. It just goes and goes. But yeah.
Okay, so we defined what it is. I think it's a kind of a shallower level of conversation that may be used to connect people or find common ground, right?
I like to assess safety. I think it assesses safety.
Assessing safety, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really huge part of it. Like,
Yeah.
can I,
Biological
like you
perspective.
said, Ryan, can I actually open up to this person or not? And whether or not it's
Do I feel
about
up for that.
like safety, like, are they going to respond in a way that's supportive versus, but also are they able to handle what I might say to them? Right? Like if I'm going through something heavy-hearted and share that with them, are they able to hold that? Or is it now that I need to take care of them because now they're upset or not, they don't know what to do with that, or they feel uncomfortable, like,
Yeah.
But do
Sure.
you think you assess
Like,
every
and that's
time
safety.
though? Because sometimes that would play a role, assessing safety, but sometimes might be like, I actually don't care to talk about deep stuff right now. I don't
Yeah.
need to go there right now. I'm happy to just keep it.
but I think it's like over time.
Mm.
So if this is someone who's a work colleague and you have interactions and you kind of pick up on the cues or how they respond, and then you might have a conversation that's a bit more personal, but not too personal, and you see how that goes. And then what do you know now? Maybe you guys hang out or do something after work and you might share a little bit deeper. Yeah, like I think you're constantly kind of like, can I go there with this person?
You might be able to go there quicker.
Yeah.
Easier.
That's a value. So can or should we get better at it? Is there a way for us to improve our, like you talk about the people who really, really dislike it and really have a hard time with it. Can we improve our
Yeah.
small talk skills? And is that even important for us to do?
I think you can.
I think again, I think it's just practice.
Yeah, you have to have more of them. But you can also like prepare for them if you know that you're not very good at it. Like you could prep yourself with
Some questions.
3, 4, 5 things that these are going to be your topics for tonight. And you're going to this party and you ask these 3, 4, 5 things, get into those. And then once that's done, you exit and you can practice that. And then next person kind of go into those.
Are you talking about like news topics or like
Like how my work is going. Oh, this is where I'm living
Yeah.
is going. Things like that.
Or if
So where I
you,
traveled.
people often ask like, what have you been up to lately? And then people are like, oh, I don't know, right? Like I get caught in that too. When they're like, what have you been up to? I'm like, lots of stuff, but I couldn't tell you what, like I
Mhm.
haven't, my
Yeah.
brain's not accessing that information.
Right.
So if you've already prepared that question, but also your response, like, oh, I went to this concert, or I went out to the restaurant,
Yeah.
or I read this book, or like whatever it might be, you're prepared to answer.
No, I agree.
It's good.
I think people's adversity, or when people don't like small talk, likely because they've had poor experiences doing so. So I really do think that connection of any form, as often as your face-to-face connection, is very important, right?
Mhm.
But yeah,
Totally.
asking the right questions, right? Because if you ask the right questions, then people will start talking, and then you find little windows to maybe share some more personal stuff
Yeah.
yourself, right? Or interesting little tidbits of information. So, for instance, the more recent one would be, do you have any trips planned this summer?
Yeah.
And some people, we'll talk about, usually there's something going on in summertime and hopefully coming out of this pandemic. So,
And they'll share if they don't have travel plans, why that is. Like they're, yeah, it won't just be a one word answer.
no, it's a window, and it opens up lots of prospects from there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't have any problem. I can do small talk, but there are times when I also don't mind going to a deeper level pretty quickly if I need to. So I remember I was at a family member's wedding several years back, and there were people there that I semi knew but didn't know very well, but I felt it was okay for me, and of course I'm a psychologist, so I'm used to deep conversations, but just sitting down with someone that I kind of know, maybe was introduced to, but don't know, but just saying, so tell me your story, so tell me about you, right? Which is really inviting a much deeper connection than just let's talk about the weather or what sports teams do you like or something like that. But I don't feel like that. I don't feel like it was threatening, and I actually had really great conversations with these people as a result.
Well, you presented to that question very nice as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
As a safety, or
it's like at a
friendly.
it's not a very festive occasion or that sort of thing, and it's just like, so tell me your story, tell me who you are. And sometimes I think it's possible to just go there. Again, there's kind of a built-in safety with the setting, but
Yeah, there's already like a filter, some filters have already been put in place there.
yeah, some filters, some safety boundaries have been put in there. But the whole question of how do you deepen something, right? If you're done talking about the weather, you're done talking about TV shows or Netflix, whatever you're going to talk about, or even travel, can you get to a different place? I know some online person talking about how instead of asking what does someone do, asking them what are they passionate about. It's a nice question to ask, right? Instead of just your career path, which some people are great with and some people don't even. What are you passionate about? What are you actually more? So these are deepening questions I think that we can ask to take us past the small talk, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I think I've mentioned it on podcasts before, but I like to ask people, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
And throws people off all the time.
Yeah.
Like fun. I don't know. I'm not sure. But then they come up with something.
Yeah.
But there's a tendency, though, to talk about what do you do for work.
Yeah.
I remember traveling in Europe, for instance, and I didn't get asked that question too often. It was more, what do you do for fun, or where it's more like, how are you?
Yeah.
Versus what do you do?
Yeah.
There's I think part two, like, there's this local group, they have to go on hikes and stuff, and they created an opportunity, something called Real Talks, where you can go at 6 a.m. at a coffee shop in Vancouver, and you're there to kind of
6 a.m.
Yeah, it was really early. It's before work for people think it was quite ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they're there to kind of be like, so I think a lot of people too, they might not be doing great, or they might have a lot of things going on, but people don't talk about those things a lot unless maybe with people close to them, or how are you? Oh, I'm fine, but how are you really? Oh, actually, well, I kind of had a tough day, but people think people don't want to hear about that. But they came here and they, you go on dyads with people you've never met, and they pose questions. What are your worries in life? Like, what do you think your barriers are to get in, and what are your hopes and things like that? And
Are these scripted or? Whatever you
Yeah,
want to ask
whatever.
about.
Yeah, they kind of pose it as the group, like the two people leading.
Mhm.
But you kind of are now sitting with someone who you don't have that sense of safety with, but the safety is that this is a place of non-judgment, and maybe like we're here to just talk about this stuff. But it was interesting, and that really appealed to me because I think I liked I think there's a lot of people, the sentiment I got was a lot of people want to talk about this stuff, but they feel like maybe alone in that, or that other people might not want to talk about that stuff. So I think you can curate these opportunities or ask those questions, and I think people want to talk about it. So, but there was no small talk there. We literally just jumped into, and you know,
Opposite.
and they had to make sure there's other things there that you're like, hey, you also have to be careful when these things come up and stuff like that. But it was just, that was different. I felt like that was the opposite of small talk.
We've been talking about asking lots of questions, getting the other person to talk. Some people don't approach it that way, though. They get talking, right?
Mhm.
And they carry the conversation,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, a different approach. But I think we're approaching it the other way, saying, have the right questions to deepen the conversation.
Room full of therapists here.
Exactly.
And some people want the attention off them, so I'm gonna have all these questions so I can
Some
not
people
talk.
like to talk about
It's true.
themselves, though,
Yeah, it's very true.
and what they're up to and what they're doing.
Maybe that's a follow-up to that is like how do you allow yourself to go a little deeper? How do you not just deepening another person's level of conversation, but how do you yourself feel comfortable enough to take that risk, right?
And what's stopping you from doing so?
And stopping you from doing so, right? Mm.
Yeah, I think when you talk about, like, if it's, people say, yeah, how are you? I'm fine. But if you actually share a bit more of a challenge that you experienced that day, or say, oh, actually, it's been a pretty tough day, felt pretty, something really cool happens. If you talk about a more difficult thing, they often say, yeah, I often feel that way too. right?
Totally. Yeah.
So I think that's a way to deepen it, is when you are the first one to talk about that difficult or challenging topic first. It doesn't have to
And
be
be
like a heavy
vulnerable.
hitter and be
Yeah.
vulnerable,
Yeah.
but in a, I shouldn't say calculated way, but not in a gigantic way, like you're unloading or unleashing on someone. But yeah, but again, something really cool happens. They start talking about their anxiety or what's going on in their lives.
Ryan, I remember in DC, you were really good with that, kind of going to those funner questions. We'd go out for dinner and you'd be like,
Mhm.
what character do you think you'd be in The Wizard of Oz? Or what do you think? Like, you'd go like, yeah, if you could write a book, what would it be about? Like, you kind of had these questions. It was interesting, like, because you'd be like, cool, like, we're not just, I don't know, we kind of go somewhere different, and you have
Typical.
thinking about different things and being like,
Yeah.
oh, but would I? Yeah.
Yeah, we're just trying to make small talk with them, and so we can
It's just-
work the room and do a tour and come down.
And
But
here
I
he
really
is,
like that.
12
yeah.
years later,
Yeah.
or however long it's been.
Because I've heard about people having dinner parties and you can have everyone put their phones away, and you could actually have, like, instead of name cards, you could have a question that you could ask people. And so it's about, I don't know. Because I think a lot of people, even their family and friends, you might not know their particular beliefs on certain things, or where they, what their passions are. Like, I think we, especially if we see each other all the time, we don't really have a lot of those conversations of how is life for you right now, and what do you look forward to doing one day, or what are you passionate about? Anyways,
It's a great point. Back to the point of the risk, right? I mean, there's a safety piece of, like, as you're trying to maybe deepen it a little bit, you're like, okay, we're finding similar areas. But, and I know in the last 2 or 3 years, 7 or 8 years, this has been a much bigger deal. It's like, oh, what if I ask a question and I find out that you're very different from me, or we're very politically or ideologically opposed to one another? And, like, I'd rather not
Go there.
I'd rather not know that, because, maybe let's just keep it more superficial so that we don't have to, the old trope of, like, you don't talk about religion or politics and with family or if in polite company.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's a big part of knowing someone, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting little dance.
Sure. No, I agree. I think it's important to have those conversations and dialogue. There was a psychologist there, I forget his name right now, William Doherty, maybe. And that was his whole thing, is bringing people together with different ideological views and creating these moments to connect on a more personal level. And it was leading to more tolerance and understanding and more compassion for someone who has different views than you. But it can be draining.
Yeah. We have to have willing participants, you know?
Mhm.
You have to have people whose idea is more about understanding the other than it is converting the other, making them
Yeah, it's a big,
like about just join me in what I believe.
Yeah.
Validate me, you know?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
There's lots to it. What's more about here? What's more about this question here? Okay, yeah. What do you think someone can do? Let's put it into more practical context here. Like you're in a social situation and there's small talk, you know, you're in a very small talky sort of place. Should you just avoid those? Should you try to get more comfortable with the small talk? Should you try to deepen it? Or what do you think is, or just know yourself as this individual differences here?
I would encourage people to become better at it. I think it's a gateway to greater, bigger things. There's a lot of rewards, possible outcomes that can come from that.
Yeah, I agree. Your relationships aren't going to deepen if you avoid them.
Yeah, I don't think avoidance is the way to go.
Mhm.
Like if you're
True.
at home by yourself because, well, a bunch of people are gathering that you were invited to, you declined it
Because the possibility.
because of the
feeling awkward.
possibility of feeling awkward from small talk.
Yeah, or just not
You're
liking
you're
it.
missing out on shared experiences, jokes, moments. Eventually those invitations stop. Like the relationships weaken, they don't strengthen.
But to your point, that conversation could deepen. And I think that goes both ways. You can't just put that on the other person to
Mhm.
Yeah.
deepen that conversation. I think if you have, like, even you had a great example of that. Tell me a bit about yourself, or
Yeah.
you know, we can
What
get,
are you about?
yeah.
Yeah.
What's your passion? What do you like to do for fun?
And then that circles back to have 3, 4, 5 questions.
Wow.
But when I was saying safety before, I think the context I was using it was more people you don't know. It's like, who is this new person? What are they gonna like?
Gotcha.
You know,
Mhm.
it could be some awkward moments in the past. Usually, in our teenage years, especially, there could be some dynamics there that sometimes our nervous system gets a little escalated when there's people there that you don't know.
Yeah.
But actually, small talk, you get a sense of what the person's like, and from there, you can have these great conversations at the end of it. Say, "Wow, this was you know, a good person there. I look forward to connecting with them again." Right?
Yeah.
It's very true. Yeah, and that's the idea of the, I guess, the finding the common ground, or having that sort of. I have many friends where yeah, our small talk kind of became not the basis for the relationship, but like a fallback on the relationship. Like small talking with somebody and realizing, oh, you like movie quotes from the 80s and 90s. So that's just kind of something we fall back on, right?
Yeah.
Or, oh, you're a fan of this sports team that I'm a fan of too. Okay, great. We can always talk about that,
Yeah.
but maybe that could be like a entry point, but we can always go to somewhere deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
Does, just to go to the psychology piece to this, do you think social anxiety has a grip in this area as well? Like, does it play a role for some people when it comes to small talk?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I was
Is it-
thinking
is
of
it
like,
yes or
yes.
Yes.
I just, yeah, I don't see how could it not. I feel like these concerns that even the awkwardness that we acknowledge and we don't have social anxiety, I think it's just tenfold for someone who already feels awkward in those situations. And the idea of one-to-one conversations with people they don't know is tough. And you hear that a lot with teens and just being, having to, I don't know, meet people. A lot of stuff's online, and having those face-to-face conversations is extra hard. And
Sure.
I think anxiety would play a role for sure.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, anxiety is the anticipation of harm and danger. So
Mhm.
you're anticipating that this interaction is not going to go well because, likely in the past, it hasn't gone well.
Mhm.
Maybe information you shared was used against you, or maybe it was cliquey, or it often stems from something, right? So you're going into it, and your nervous system's trying to convince you that this can be dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Be cautious, maybe avoid, or keep to yourself, right?
I like it. Anxiety is the anticipation of harm and danger.
Mhm.
So social anxiety is anticipation that, you know, yeah, it's going to be dangerous to connect with someone. Right?
Mhm.
The body's trying to warn you because, again, there's probably some feeling memories or body memories that are severed from the past, right?
Absolutely.
But again, if there is social anxiety, what is our approach clinically is often to help, help people from spiraling or avoiding, and teaching those Mason techniques to help calm their bodies and easing into those social interactions, right? Starting off with some safer ones and trying to deepen those.
Yeah.
But I don't think the approach should be to avoid those interactions completely.
True. What you were talking about earlier, Brooke, about kind of having 3 or 4 or 5 questions or topics, I think that's valuable. To maybe as a starting point.
Yeah.
I've known people, I've worked with clients before where that, like, they feel like they need to almost have a script going into something, and that's just not the way that social interactions go. You know, you can't really pre-write everything you're going to say at a party, because the spontaneity and the in the moment stuff is really such a part of it. So I do think that, yeah, it's good to have a few of those questions or something in your pocket, you know,
just in case there's like, it falls flat. One of the questions falls flat. Now there's an awkward silence.
yes,
What do
Right.
you do?
yeah,
Well,
okay,
You have a question number 2.
yep.
Go for it.
Anyone
And
see
it might
the
not
new-
even happen. You might not even get to question number 2 or question 1.
You might not, right? But it's a good fallback.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it is more about sort of trying your best to step out of the self-consciousness and just
Yeah.
be there in the moment with people, and
Yeah.
like bouncing back a little bit of the social stuff and
Be
Oh,
curious,
yeah.
ask questions.
be curious.
Yeah.
You know, what's kind of odd is that gossip is a mode of connection,
Yes.
and
Oh,
often
nice one.
Huge.
Yeah,
often helps people with small talk because it gives something to talk about.
totally.
But it actually serves a purpose for people because it helps build a connection with that person. So talking about someone else becomes that point of connection.
Well, Brene Brown brought that up, right? When she was at the symposium, not gossip, but that people bond over things that they dislike.
Mhm.
So if you find, it's not just like bonding over shared interest, it's bonding over things that,
Yeah.
you dislike.
Yeah, so you see that sometimes. So, did you hear about this so and so? I'm like, yeah, I did hear about it. And then before you know it, you're communicating and connecting. So be cautious about that too. Don't contradict your values or
Yeah.
talk about other people who are not there. That can definitely come back to bite you.
Yeah, I'm good. You talked about there's a big downside to gossiping, right? That is that you're kind of spreading some toxicity into the world there, right?
Mhm.
It may help you to bond with that person in that moment, but boy, there's
We
that
don't
can-
want to encourage it.
it could come back to bite you big time.
Yeah.
Including even if you guys are both, I mean, you've just seen these scenarios too many times, you know. We're both talking about this person, but it turns out that they're friends with that other person, and now that turns back on you. It just gets ugly quickly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So keeping it Canadian and positive is probably better.
You could talk about what you heard on the Mental Health Bootcamp podcast.
Hey, here we are. That's one of the public services
Yeah.
we're providing, is giving you content to talk about at your social interactions each week.
Or join a book club
Join a book club.
and you'll have
Gives
that
you
to
a
talk
point
about.
of
Common
conversation.
ground. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, really. Just having something going on, whether it's reading a book or
Yeah.
traveling or watching a TV show, I guess is something too.
Yeah.
What about Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Well,
Have you
then-
looked up any other Kate Bush songs or music videos?
Nope.
Pretty interesting.
They're
Are they?
pretty interesting. Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
That sounds good.
I like the fact you have a few questions. With the, using the travel one again, do you have any trips planned this summer? You're always looking for something else, other nuggets of information they can ask a follow-up question on, or jump in there and talk about your experience too, right?
Mhm.
So it's a starting place that can get to a deeper place, right? So it doesn't have to be a big in-depth question at first, but you'll kind of get there
I think so.
through that line
I think the idea of practice is important, and like
Yeah.
viewing this as a growth process and a practice process, like you can learn how to do small talk.
Yeah.
Because even the curiosity thing, there's a little nuance to that. I mean, people can feel interrogated or put on the spot, well, where are you traveling this summer? Well, what day are you going? What time are you going to be
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
What's that going to be? Why are you going there? There's a lot in the delivery and in the intent there.
Type of question,
Sure.
opposed to like, oh, have you been there before?
Mhm.
What do you like about there? I've never been there. What's that like? Or
Just a little
Yeah.
feeling that what's going to be the best in that
Yeah.
moment.
yeah, for sure.
But I do think it is a skill that can be honed.
And I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking about it, and maybe this answers my question that I had for you about what's the difference, like the pool party this weekend versus if it was someone, a party where you haven't seen someone for a year. Maybe not though. Anyway, I was just thinking about, maybe small talk doesn't really feel like small talk. Maybe it feels like a deeper conversation when both parties are truly invested in the conversation.
Hmm.
Like authenticity, genuineness,
Mhm.
presence.
Mhm.
I'm here now. Like,
Totally.
I wonder if that's part of it. You could have like a very similar conversation with two different people, like somebody who maybe is being split-minded, something's running on in the back of their heads. They're there because they want to connect, like they need to be there versus wanting to be there and seeing how you are.
Mhm.
If that makes any sense. I feel like it feels different.
Mhm.
Like when someone is
Sure.
really present and they sit down and they say, how are you? Like, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? How are you
Sure.
doing? Versus
You're basically
someone
saying,
who's
I
like,
care about you.
yeah, versus the person who's kind of fluttering around the party and they're like, oh, hey, haven't seen you. How are you? How are things
Yeah.
going?
That's
And you
true.
can tell that they're there, but they're not fully present.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
Or if like drinks are involved, so they're another reason they're not fully present.
but I think you're speaking about attitude there too.
An intent.
Like you actually are like we saw our cousin yesterday, Joanna's cousin. Because I was jumping around and whatnot, I don't think we had the most in-depth conversations.
No.
But I still feel, and I'm sure he feels too, he felt the interactions we did have were very positive, right?
Yeah.
And it was really good to see him, right? So yeah, I think that attitude that you really want to learn about someone,
Yeah.
the curiosity.
Like, I want to be here with you.
Yeah, I care about you. I care. I'm gonna give you my undivided attention. I'm not gonna just scan the room to see who else is here or look at my phone.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the feeling, right?
And being an
Not
active
necessarily what
listener.
you're saying,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think that plays into it.
I think it does. And I'll throw out one other piece to this too, which is I think it might be a little safer for some people to put out an invitation, even if you don't need to mean for them to deliver on it right now, right? You could say, hey, I'd love to know what your passions are someday. If you're ever interested, let's talk about that. I'd love to know what makes you tick. I'd love to hear your life story sometime. Maybe sometime that can happen. Then you're not putting them on the spot to have to deliver right now. You're also showing some interest
Yeah.
and saying, yeah, I'd be willing to go there. Maybe they will take you up on it right now, but maybe not,
Yeah.
But just even again, having that invitation and that curiosity, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Shows that you're curious and interested.
And genuinely.
Genuinely, right?
Yeah.
And actually meaning it, yeah.
And so I think, it's kind of almost like, the depth of your own emotional state going in has
Mhm.
something to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think sometimes, superficial small talk, if you're literally just like wasting time,
Yeah.
feels really hollow. But if you're doing small talk on this, like, I am here now kind of vibe, then it feels deeper.
Mhm.
Or
I think
even
I've experienced a bit of both of those.
Yeah.
Because there could be, I think, at the parties, and there's people I look forward to seeing a lot, and we're not distracted, but sometimes you're just like, you don't even know where to start, or just still sometimes feels like we just haven't seen each other, and how much do we actually talk about right now, and is that even what our friendship is like these days? So yeah, I guess I see what you mean, and I think, but I also think there's other, so you can have that engagement, but also you're like, okay, well, nice talking to you,
You
and
want a hug? Yeah.
give him a hug. Good to see you. And like that's just gonna be all it
Yeah,
is.
that's
Even
okay.
if we both tried really hard in that. But I think
It
that's
seems
just
like you're there's a recent experience here.
Yeah.
no, I just think I think it's hard. I think if there's people you want to connect with and might have big expectations for it, and it just might not play out. Or
Fizzles.
yeah, and that's okay too.
And that could be commented on too. Like, oh, it doesn't look like we were able to really get a moment to really catch up
Yeah.
this time. But I hope we could do that again in the future. And kind of put words to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But also like, I like what you mentioned there, saying, hey, it'd be nice to sit down with you more. But that might not
put
be
that intention
realistic.
out there.
But
Yeah.
that also might not be realistic. You're like, it was really nice to connect with you right
Yeah.
now, and we may see you in the future. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, you hear a lot of those. We should get together. Oh,
Yeah.
we should
And then
plan
it
something.
doesn't.
It'd be great to see each other more. And then
Maybe the intention is a very good one, but
yeah,
you're busy. So again, trying to assess it and say, is this someone, do I actually have time to meet
Yeah.
up and connect with this person?
You can't have deep friendships with everyone.
you can't. And that's it. So then maybe it's like this is just gonna be someone you see every now and then, and that could be great
That's
and
great.
meaningful in itself.
You build on what you talked
Yeah.
about the time before. And
Yeah,
yeah, there's definitely lots
different
of those.
layers.
Friends
Yeah.
of friends, right?
There's a big difference between we should get together sometime and we should get together. Oh, what are you doing the week after next on Tuesday night or whatever? You know,
Exactly.
that's a big
There's a
difference.
difference. Yeah.
And there's much more investment involved. So that's
Yeah.
Big time, right?
yeah. That is true.
So how about this weather?
I know.
Should we talk about the weather?
And the traffic on the way to Staples. Woo.
Well, this was a great topic, Joe. Thank you for bringing it up.
One of the
Good
best
job.
ones. Good job.
Thank you, Ryan.
I feel
Thanks for
closer for having discussed this on a deeper level with you. This is good. All right, so I guess that'll be it. I'll be signing off from Canada. I'll be back in the States next time we do this. So,
Yep.
but hey, great to see you guys in person. Wonderful to be in the same room together. Oh my gosh, so much fun.
so good.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it. We did it. So that's it for now. Like and subscribe. Check us out on
Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and Podbean.
and drop us an email on our Facebook page, and that's it for now. Go forth and have much small talk and deeper conversations.
Mhm.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. See y'all later.
Bye.
Watch
I know.
out for Panda.
Are you gonna get it?